and some words of a greeting or encouragement or a charge, as the case may be, as you may find appropriate, please express in the chat. Once again, my name is Olatunji Shubodu, and I'll be leading the discussion this evening. Okay, so there we are. It's lead smarter, lead smarter. That's the subject for this evening. That's the subject for this evening. All right, let's look at what we have. All right, EMET Leadership Academy. EMET Leadership Academy is committed to leadership competence development, and especially nurturing leaders by the truth of God's word, producing leaders with a heart for God, and leaders after their own kind. That's what we do. Our deliveries are influenced from that point of view. And like I did say earlier on, my name is Olatunji Shubodu. I'm just passionate about the subject of leadership. By way of background, over 3 decades of experience in the public sector, in the church, the business school, over a range of activities across, and I've held leadership positions for as long as I can remember. I think that's it by way of a background. I would also seize the opportunity to recognize one of the participants with whom I share some background. I believe is Victor, is the current group head of strategy at UBA Group. Victor, you're welcome. I was chatting with Victor over LinkedIn, and when we linked up and I saw his current responsibility, it reminded me of my days back at UBA, and I held a similar position. Then it was head of strategy and the chief economist of UBA, but that's a couple of years back. So Victor, you're welcome. It's a pleasure having the opportunity to host you this evening. And I welcome every other person. You are no less important. I'm sure you can relate to the need to reminisce, as it were, on the years gone by. Very interesting times many years ago at UBA. All right, so today's agenda, this is what we'll be looking at. First of all, to diagnose your leadership dilemma, in case you have any. Some of us may not have. What challenge or challenges are you facing in your leadership approach or style? That's the first thing that we'll look at. Basically, there just to throw up what some of the challenges that leaders, some of the challenges that leaders tend to face. Then we'll look at, leading smarter, the imperative to lead smarter. That is, having established those challenges, we want to be able to appreciate why the concept of leading smart. And then we'll try and flesh out that concept by looking at some key elements of what it takes to lead smart. And then we'll talk about execution and how you keep track. If you are convinced that that's the way to go, how do you go about making the changes from what you do currently to what becomes, the direction to follow? So the mission for this session is to make smart leaders lead smarter. to make smart leaders lead smarter. For a moment, I thought about the difference between a smart leader and leading smart. I don't want to drag that debate right now so that it doesn't distract our focus. But that's something to think about. And you may wish to comment in the chat, if you think there's a difference between both of them, and perhaps, suggest how you would like to describe yourself. Are you a smart leader, or do you lead smartly, or are you both? It would be interesting to see what our responses are. All right, so by way of overview, let's look at how we would approach this subject. What's your approach to leadership? And the question is important, and I'll please like to encourage that as you go through this session, it's not about me, it's all about you. The idea is to share with you our thoughts on the challenges that leaders face, and perhaps a need for you to re-examine your approach to leadership so that you can lead smarter and lead better, make a greater impact. It's such an important responsibility that we can no longer afford to take it with levity. I often, say that the world is where it is today with all of its challenges for lack of leadership. So how deliberate have you been in crafting a distinct approach to leadership? Do you have a distinct approach to leadership? Think about it. If you were asked to describe what your approach to leadership is, what would you say? Again, all right, let's get going. Please explain or describe what your approach to leadership is. What's your approach to leadership? What's your approach to leadership? How do you approach that all-important responsibility of leadership? All of us have leadership responsibility at one level or the other. How do you approach it? Are you deliberate in your approach? Can you easily describe that this is how I do leadership? And whether in fact you believe your approach amounts to doing leadership right, or doing leadership as it should be done. That's a very instructive statement. There's a lot that can be said about that, but hopefully we'll touch on it as we go along. Next, how have you fared thus far? How have you performed thus far? Even if you were to rate yourself, how well have you done? Are you, have you been a smart leader? Assume for now that your own definition of smart leadership, how would you rate yourself? How successful have you been in delivering the true essence of leadership, which is transformation of people? Please share your thoughts. Let's make this interactive. And if you want to speak, you can please raise your hand at any time so that we can enjoy the benefit of the experiences that make up the class. The value, one of the most important sources of value for sessions like this is the participation, is the participants. And it's good to be upfront, to be open, because if you are not sharing, others will not be encouraged to share. And you may find out that what you are looking for, maybe not even with regard to the current subject, may be found in the experience of some other person on the platform. So let me encourage us not to just keep quiet. Let's be upfront. I'm sure you want to make the most, of the time that you'll be spending here So why don't you, let's get on with it. So I've said, first of all, what's your approach to leadership? Can you easily describe it? Or is it something you have to really think about before you can put pen to paper to describe it? Do you in fact have, any distinct approach that is easily describable? Next, how well have you fared with it? How have you performed? What do you have to show for the quality or strength of leadership that you provide? And the third is, how easy is it to replicate your approach? So you have an approach, great. How easy is it to replicate your approach? Okay, how easy is it to replicate your approach? All right, thank you, Mr. Latunji. He says, always believe to be a team player. So you are a team player, great. All right, you are a team player, you believe in being a team player. I'm going to ask you, sir, to tell us what that means. What does it mean to be a team player? All right, Victor says, I see leadership as a call to service, which influences the things I do and how I act. So we have there a call to service, a call to serve. Again, Victor, maybe just a word on what you consider to be service would be helpful. Just like to pin down things a bit more so that we are clear about the point that you want to make. All right, so that's it by way of our opening teasers. And those should set every one of us thinking. If you don't feel comfortable responding to those questions, not because you are not expressing yourself in the chat, certainly not at all, but in yourself and with yourself, if you don't feel comfortable responding, especially in the affirmative and with clarity to those three questions, then you really need what we're going to be discussing. You really need to take a second look at your approach to what is such an important responsibility. Leadership is a responsibility that involves the lives of people. It's not a responsibility that is just about making profit or achieving targets. Leadership is about people. People's lives are involved. People's lives, their future is involved. Is actually committed into the hands of the leader. To see leadership from the perspective of just moving a team or mobilizing a team to get results is to do a grave injustice to what leadership is, and is to be unfair to the people whose lives have been entrusted into the hands of the leader, whether the leader likes it or not. He or she, in whatever circumstance, whether you are working for a profit-making company or an NGO or government, or even in your family as a leader, what has been entrusted to you are the lives of people. The lives of people are involved. The future of people, is involved. What people become or do not become is involved. The prospects that lie ahead for people is influenced, indeed determined, by the leader. And the challenges and situations and circumstances that many find themselves in today is attributable to the leaders under whom they have served. So what's the leadership dilemma? What's the motivation for the discussion on leading smarter? Or why do we need to consider a different approach, a distinct approach to the leadership responsibility? Let's look at that in this, first section. Again, I'd like to come back to us. Do you have any dilemma as a leader today? Are you facing any dilemma? Do you want to share with us what are the challenges that you're having fulfilling your responsibility as a leader today? What are the frustrations that you're contending with? Why is it that leadership appears so burdensome and so difficult a responsibility to carry on your shoulders? Yes, leaders are meant to carry responsibility, but for some people, they've had to really sit down and think, why is this thing proving to be so difficult to grapple with? And it's a dilemma. The dilemma is, I need to do this. At my level, I'm required to provide leadership, but I don't appear to be making the right impact, to be getting the right results. All right. Even shouldering this responsibility is taking its toll on me. Do we have anybody in that position? Would you like to share with us some of your challenges? And while we're waiting for you to do that, again, please, let's be forthcoming, share our experiences, our current situations. It will help the class, it will help me. I also want to learn from your good selves. So what's wrong? Are you feeling unsatisfied and frustrated with your leadership style? Maybe because it's producing results well below what you know to be your current potential. Are you one of those leaders who knows that, look, I can do better than this? With my team, we have what it takes to do far better than we're doing. What's the problem? I seem to have tried my best, or I have put in so much, but I am not getting the right kind of results. Or perhaps there are incessant complaints and pushback against your style of leadership. And that may be putting you at a great disadvantage at work and in your career. You may be not nurturing some fears that your inability to stay on top of your game as far as providing quality leadership is concerned, could undermine your position, could undermine your future where you work currently. Are you under pressure to prove your leadership competence with results or face adverse consequences? Could anyone be in that kind of situation? It's a dilemma. Do you feel stuck in your leadership responsibility and you don't know what you are doing wrong? You are doing leadership. You are giving it all. But somehow, you don't know what's happening. What you are expecting isn't showing. The results aren't coming through in the numbers in your people. You're perhaps even having challenges getting your people to do what needs to be done, what you would love them to do, to play their own part. All right? And they're just not. And you're wondering, what else? Where am I missing it? Where am I missing it? Olatunji says, that's my namesake, apparently. I've observed the most potent issues are due to tribal political crisis, and I would like to know how to balance such crises. Mr. Olatunji, you have to provide us with a lot more flesh. That is quite abstract. If you could, speak a bit more to it, that would be great. And if you would like to speak, just let us know. We'll give you the floor, and you may want to just, flesh that up for our benefit. But I suspect that you're bringing up a very important point there. All right, I have had a challenge, which is also a question. You are leading a team whose performance seems to have plateaued. Yeah. How do you as a leader create new energy levels that create great excitement for more wins for the team? Fantastic, fantastic. So say you have gotten to, what is some sort of tipping point. This team, at least was able to get to a level, but getting them to move beyond that level is proving to be challenging. And you're doing so much and they're just not. And you feel, well, at least from what Victor has said here, that you need some new energy. You need new energy, to get things up and running. Please stay. So I take note of it as a question, and, it's a dilemma. And thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much for putting that perspective on the table. And we're going to address that, but please be on the lookout, because we'll be talking about this as we examine the issues. The challenge, Ada says, of dealing with difficult or non-cooperative team members, don't we all have them? You just have people who just seem to be against what you're doing, who just want to prove to be difficult. And in some cases, they may not even know it, or some might feign ignorance, but they know what they are doing. So the people that you have to lead come in various forms. They come in various forms. And, so we can see that also is very important. Thank you very much for sharing those perspectives. Please let them keep coming. They are helpful, and you can begin to see that, different people are facing the same leadership issue from different perspectives. Now, when some of us share our perspectives, it might just be what somebody else is thinking, but you haven't said anything. But, now you know that you are not in it alone. I mean, and there's nothing to be ashamed of, because if you weren't interested, if we are not interested in improving, then we won't be in the class, because that's the essence of it all. So let's keep them coming. So we have taken note of it. Olatunji, if you want to speak, let me know, or you want to add additional flesh to what you have said, issues of tribal political crisis, how to balance the crisis. I just need to have a clearer view of the point that you are making there, and then we'll be able to respond. Okay, so let's continue. So you can see different scenarios that I'm throwing on, so that you appreciate the kinds of situations that leaders, may find themselves in, and they need to act, because such situations are tricky. Such situations should not be allowed to persist. Otherwise, a lot of things can go wrong. There can be consequences. Some people are frustrated because their boss, the one to whom they report, their own leader, has lost confidence in their leadership ability. And one of the ways that you see that expressed is that the leader then goes over them or around them, as the case may be, to deal directly with their subordinates, with their team members. I don't know if you have experienced that, but I have, been in classes where people express that frustration. And when a leader does that, at times, you really need to find out what's going on. You need to find out what's going on. But that can be, nobody wants that to happen. I don't want you to put me in charge of some people. And then of course, when you put me in charge of a team, you probably believe that I have what it takes to manage the team and to lead the team to realize its objectives. All right. The moment, and I don't expect you to go over me or around me to relate directly is in a sense a breaking protocol. But some leaders, some bosses might find it necessary to do that as a way to send a signal, one of which is to express displeasure at the quality of leadership that is being provided, or the quality of supervision that is being given. Some of us may be what I call rookie leaders. Rookie leaders, new into new leadership, formal leadership positions, now having to preside over a team, and they are failing to produce stellar results or sterling results, as you want to put. And there is desperate need for a turnaround. You know how many people look at leaders when they are not the one on the seat? It's easy to criticize. And these are people who have said one thing or the other about their leaders in the past. Now they have been given their own opportunity. They have been promoted. They are now presiding over a team. And here they are grappling, struggling, for relevance. They find suddenly that it's not easy to mobilize the team, to lead them, to achieve results. You may have found people like that, and we ourselves may have been in that kind of position. How many of us may have said things about our leaders in the past, as though when we get to their seat, we'll be able to do far better than we thought they were doing. And then we had our way, not even placed at their level, just given responsibility over a small group, possibly even one or two people, and here we are unable to deliver. That also becomes a leadership dilemma for the category of leaders. All right. So I see a hand. I'm going to recognize you shortly. Okay, I see a number of other expressions here. Victor Balogun, you're welcome once again. Team members seems to be inconsistent in their commitment towards the vision of the organization. So what you are saying is that you can't seem, to get members to commit themselves to where the organization is headed and to line up as such. Okay, that can be a problem. Of course, you know what they say about a house that is divided against itself. If you truly want to get results that matter to the organization, then clearly it's important that you have the entire team heading in the same direction. You can't have some people heading east and then some people are heading west. It just would not work. Victor also says you are leading a cross-cultural or diverse team from different geographies with different work styles. work culture and understanding what achievement or results represent, and you're struggling to bring everyone to a common understanding, what would you do? Fantastic question there. Fantastic. And I can relate to your point, noting that your organization is present in different geographies, operates within different cultures, yet as an organization you still want to maintain the same culture. You want UBA in South Africa to be same as UBA in Nigeria, to be the same as UBA in Ghana, not to have different work cultures prevailing. But then here we are, we have people who themselves emanate from different cultures, okay? And you as a team leader, you now have to try and get that multicultural team, all right, to work in concert, to lead them towards achieving a unified result. Okay, so let's take, before I take, let's take, Olatunji, let's hear you. You can unmute your mic. You can speak very quickly. Let's hear you. Let the class hear you. Let's share your perspective.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Good day, everyone. What I am trying to emphasize on is relative to what Mr. Victor just said. When you're in a situation whereby you have a team with different backgrounds, work ethics, and in spite of everybody having interest in a common goal, due to the political constraints that always happen due to different cultures and ethics that people have, there's always a new kind of constraints that begins to develop. A group within a group that begins to develop, and sometimes it starts to affect your operation. So what I'm trying to find out is how to mitigate such scenarios without making without it affecting the ethics of people or their cultures.
Okay. Do you? I'm not going to answer that directly until we have gone through a couple of things that I want to share. So I'm going to ask that let's just look at what we will share and see how we would apply it. But one of the things, let me ask at this point, however, that has that challenge been made aware to the team that this is the nature of, this is the character of the team, and this is the challenge that the team faces and needs to overcome if the best of the team, all right, must come alive? Has that initiative been undertaken? Because presumably, I mean, somebody is heading this team. Somebody has overall immediate responsibility for this team.
Yes. So to a point, communication has been. I've tried to speak to units and always create a environment where we can air our thoughts, and it's from such communication that the feedback is diverse, and so okay, how do I solve this? Because Group A has a feeling that Group B is the one affecting operation, and Group B is blaming Group A, that Group A has its own issues, and then you notice that this is not really a operational issue, but it's more of another kind of issue. Yes, cultural issue that you can sense is coming up.
Okay.
And you have to make sure you be in the middle, but how do you be in the middle without, and you are the person who are from a cultural background.
Yes.
And it gets to a point that it's almost like you have to pick a side.
Yes. And you must never pick a side, by the way.
And yes. Thank you, sir.
You must never pick a side. Okay, we're going to address it. Okay, from your point, you must never pick a side as a leader. And this is one of the challenges of leadership. A leader must rise above those kinds of considerations. A leader must rise above, noting that you have those disparities, those cultural, characteristics that define the composition of your team. A leader must then be conscious. It is smartness on the part of the leader to be conscious that I have this attribute that characterizes, that defines my team, all right? And I must be able to rise above it. I must not allow any form of bias to be expressed either as a reality, in which case you are also caught up in it, or implied. The people must not be able to infer or imply from your conduct, from your words, that you are on anyone's side. Please take note. I'm going to speak about the priorities of leadership. And when I speak about those priorities, if we pursue them, they will handle these kinds of challenges, these kinds of situations. This is like a weight that a leader needs to be able to shoulder, but it's not intended as a standard challenge for leaders, but only to the extent that some leaders don't understand the nature of the weight that they should be carrying, as leaders. But I will speak more to that. I will speak more to that in a bit. All right, John says, think one of the frustrations in leadership is the lack of delegation of responsibility. Okay, so delegation is coming up. We're going to be speaking about it incidentally. You give leadership position, but as a toothless bulldog. I don't mean to be, well, I suppose to be bad or to be hard, but authority, to lead. Okay, so you're saying maybe the reason why some leaders are frustrated by the performance of their people is that, yes, they have delegated, or at least in their view, they believe they have delegated, but they've delegated responsibility, but they haven't delegated authority. And so the delegation is ineffective, because on the one hand, you have said to your team member, do this. On the other hand, you have not empowered your team member to do the needful, all right, to be able to handle that. When you are a leader without empowerment, how do you achieve true followership? Wow. So it's part of what John was talking about. Victor is lending credence. So you want me to get a job done. Usually the responsibilities, the roles are defined, but there is no empowerment. There is no empowerment. That also can be an issue. As a leader of a 10-man team, getting the direct reporting line to manage the affairs of their subunit, and also ensuring that every member of the team is contributing significantly, is a challenge. Thank you, Sadiq. Very, very instructive contributions. Thank you so much. You see that, things are getting richer. Let's make some progress. Please just pay attention and keep all these issues in view. And we'll soon begin to look at what is important and why is it that we're having these challenges. So, do you desire a more compact and proven approach to leadership that will transform your results forever. Okay, so the dilemma, therefore, you have mentioned a number of them. But we often also find that they are characterized by a wrong definition of results. And I want to say, not all results truly matter for leaders. Not all results truly matter. So at times, leaders are burdened because they are focused on the wrong set of results. Some results matter more than the others. So there is issue of relevance and there is issue of priorities. And some leadership is not fact driven. It ought to be based on truth. You can't do leadership on the basis of some popular terminology or fad, or what people like to say. You have to do it on the basis of conviction, on the basis of an understanding of how this is meant to work. Assuming that I haven't tried it myself before, and that refers to you. There is also the issue of the wrong set of priorities, Now, not everything that is associated with leadership is to be considered priority. Not everything that we're focusing on is to be considered priority. For the purpose of a leadership assignment, you have to ask the question, what is important? What should be priority? Yet, leadership is everything. Why do leaders get frustrated? Why do they get overwhelmed? This may be some of the answers to the issues you have raised. One is that we don't know the way out of too many situations that our team find themselves in. What it means is that the leader often doesn't have an answer to the challenges of the team. And every challenge that your team faces, every challenge that your follower faces, is a challenge that has a solution. And who better to solve it than the leader? Is one of the reasons that leadership is important. You do not prove to be on top of your game in terms of the demands of the assignment before your team. When you don't know what to do, there's a knowledge gap. There is no problem that doesn't have a solution as it pertains to your team. And the problems that your team will face, they are not problems that have nothing to do with the focus of your team. If they are, then those problems are not relevant. They are not for you to attend to. So what is my team supposed to deliver on? If my team is supposed to increase our customer base or meet a deposit target of say 50 billion, and we have issues that have to do with for example, with credit, or issues that have to do with logistics. Except, of course, if those are issues that stand in the way of the ability of your team to deliver on its target, they are not things that one should be bothered about. So the question, do you know enough? Are you sufficiently knowledgeable to lead that team? You are head of an operations team. You are head of a sales team. Do you know enough to really lead that team in the area of sales? Do you? The second issue is inconsistency. Some leaders are inconsistent in their approach to issues, and they appear arbitrary in their dealings. And this is where some aspect of what you noted with the cross-cultural issues may, find relevance. How consistent are you as a leader in addressing issues that come up? You see, once you have those peculiarities within your team, people's attention will be heightened. So your people are looking at you, how you respond when a Yoruba man brings an issue, and they want to compare it with how you respond when a Kenyan brings an issue, maybe the same issue. Do you address them with in the same manner, in which case you are consistent? And consistency is a cure for bias. All right? It means that this is how this man deals. It's not because of where you came from or anything, but that's how he handles these kinds of situations. So a leader in that example that Olatunji brought, and some, others also alluded to, might need to look inwards and ask yourself some fundamental questions. I'm not saying that's the issue here. I'm saying it's one of the issues that can lead to a situation like that. And you're asking yourself, okay, so am I consistent? Do I deal in reality? I mean, substance over form. Is the spirit with which I attend to issues the same when they are shared? All right. And you find for many leaders that this isn't the case. I can also tell you that it even happens where there is nothing like culture involved. It happens in a team where you have even male and female. They are all from the same culture. They are all, but, and I'm sure that men understand this probably more than women among us. And everybody is looking at you. They are looking at how you deal when a woman approaches you. You are scrutinized. And the slightest, show of, excitement or can create a problem for you. It can wrestle your team out of your hands, because your team once your team begins to feel that you are inconsistent, it undermines your leadership. It undermines your leadership. It makes leadership burdensome, because you always have to prove that what they think is not correct. No leader should put himself in that position. No leader should put himself, because you raise the bar against yourself. You're always having, to scale that hurdle in order to make a point. So you are better off not boxing yourself into that corner. And that's why we're going to talk about self-awareness. Because I hate to say it, but many of us don't even know ourselves enough to know that we are not consistent in the way that we deal with issues. And one of the reasons that we're not consistent is goes back to that first question I asked. Do you have a clear approach to leadership? And I'm going to answer that shortly, because there is an approach that has components. Can you identify the components? A number, of our, colleagues were upfront enough to say, this is how I approach it. For me, it is service, and there were other contributions like that. But we're going to look at it because you are going to really take a look. It has to be more than just saying, for me, it is service, or for me, it is people, or for me, it is this. There are elements of your approach to leadership that will help you to ensure that you are consistent in the implementation of that responsibilities. We have seen the importance of consistency. It can't be overemphasized. All right, let's go on. And then we look at, some other. Great. So consistency and predictability in leadership, where then lies looking at issues from the prevailing context. Let me immediately respond to that, Victor. And this is where, you see, again, one of the ways that leaders make this problem a bit intractable for themselves is that many times leaders don't talk enough. Many times there are some of us who think that we owe nobody an explanation. Some of us expect that those we lead see what we do, they should be able to understand. And I guarantee you that if you are waiting for people to understand without taking the step to make them understand, you are leaving them to interpret your gestures in as many ways as there are team members. I always emphasize that leaders don't keep quiet. Among others, the most powerful instrument a leader has is his words. Nothing changes people like words. So when you don't, the context that you're talking about, how do I know the context, sir? If you don't explain it, if you don't anticipate first that yes, the prevailing context can change, but when the prevailing context changes, are you expecting me to understand the context as a follower? Don't forget that you sit, where you see more than I can see. So at times you don't blame followers for holding their view. Their view is informed by what they see from where they are seated. They don't have the elevated view of the leader. So how do you bridge that gap? The gap between what they think and the reality is by filling them in, is by bending backwards to fill them in. Even if, look, I'm sure every one of us can relate to this. How many times have you felt that you don't owe your team members an explanation? They should be able to understand what's going on. And some would even go to the extent of saying, well, if they misinterpret, that's their business. Oh no, that's not their business. That's your business. Because if you leave it to their business, you are raising obstacles on your way. That's what you are doing. So when if we go back to that example, if you have to, first of all, like I said, you must understand that you have Kenyans, you have, Ugandans, you have South Africans, you have Nigerians, you have Ghanaians in your team. For you not to lead the team with that consciousness is not being smart. But when you are conscious of it, It's not enough to know it. Is to what use do you put that knowledge? How does that peculiarity reflect in your approach? One of the things that you must do is that you need a lot more of sacrificial disposition. That is taking on the responsibility to ensure that people understand when the way you deal, number one, the principles by which you run, number two, and why certain things are done differently. You see, what it means is that you need presence of mind. I know, for example, that when this Kenyan came and to ask me for, 3 days off, I gave 3 days off. But when the Nigerian showed up and asked me for 3 days off, maybe months, I've even forgotten that I gave the Kenyan 3 months. I couldn't give the Nigerian 3 months. 3 days. I said no. And so you are expecting the Nigerian who knows that you gave the Kenyan 3 days to understand without any explanation why. You expect that Nigerian to know that the context has changed. It may be, for example, that the Nigerian is asking for time when you're under pressure, maybe when appraisal is being done, or when the budget is being done, or during a performance review session, or there is one special activity that is going on, and you need that person, to really be on the ground. You need all your people to be on the ground so you can't sacrifice. But until you explain that, please don't expect that the follower will know. Even if they know, I can assure you that they will pretend as if they don't know. Some leaders, therefore, in such circumstances, will not even bother to explain. And if somebody drew their attention to the fact that, this is what happened, and some of our secretaries may be in a position to draw attention to things like that, we must not just wave it away or brush it away as though we expect that person, to understand, because not likely that they will. All right, not likely that they will. All right, Yusuf, you are welcome. How can someone take leadership role without being given the responsibility? Wow, I'm going to crave your indulgence, but that's a bit outside the scope of the class. But I would refer you to one or two of our programs. If you reach out to me, if you put your email, okay, I think I probably have your email, but just place a note in the chat. I can refer you to our office politics sessions. And I think a couple of people on the platform have attended, those sessions. They will give you a sense of how to handle such scenarios. Okay, we need to move quickly. All purpose. Your team also works spontaneously, lacking any sense of what's important to you as the leader. You have not set out clearly enough what drives your approach to leadership and make following you a challenge with every task that comes. Do you have a pattern or do you have a process? Do the people know what your view of leadership is? How do you approach the subject of leadership? Are you, predictable? All right? Are you predictable? You understand? So, for some people, for some leaders, some of us, and I challenge everyone on the platform, and that was why the question, what's your approach to leadership? Do your people know it? Can they describe your approach? If they did, will it agree with what you have described? If that's not the case, there are issues. There are issues. You make it difficult for people to follow you. You make it difficult for them to exercise discretion. They don't know what you would frown at. They don't know what you would get excited at. All right. We don't take the time. We just get into the seat and we are doing the job. And we manage it as we come. But we have a team that is going to be with us for a while. Some of us have been working with the same people for 3 years, for 4 years, for 2 years. And we have never sat down to say, look, this is my approach to leadership. These are my boundaries. These are the principles that I work with. These are my priorities. And that's important because it's like this is like defining the terms of engagement between your people and yourself. When the terms of engagement are laid out, it makes it easier for the relationship to proceed. All right? It makes it easier. Okay? And then it also helps them to be able to assess some of those things you talked about, prevailing context. Because if I know the way you deal, if I know how you think, if I know the things that matter to you in this assignment, then I'm better empowered to reason through what I observe, the actions I observe you to take, the decisions that I observe, the way that you relate with me, So you empower me by making clear what your approach to leadership is. There's another point, accountability. Let me ask, ladies and gentlemen, what have you held yourself out to your followers or your people what can your people hold you accountable for? Forget the targets and all of that. What can your people, how have you presented yourself to those following you? Because you're expecting their commitment, you're expecting their cooperation. What can they hold you responsible for? Or are you the only one that can hold them responsible for something? You want them to deliver in one way, you want them to act somehow, but you are not making any commitment. This leader-follower relationship is a two-way traffic. The two parties, make no mistake, have responsibilities to themselves. You have an expectation from me as my leader. And when you don't get it, you are disappointed. And you have a right to be once I'm aware. But I also have expectations from you. And you must be aware. And you must operate in a manner that I am free to hold you that much accountable. So if you are willing, let me know in the chat, please. What have you said to your team that, look, hold me accountable for this? Expect me to relate with you in this manner. When I step out of line in these areas, call my attention to it. This is what my contribution will be. This is what I am taking responsibility for. If you find many of us don't, please share with us. Let's hear from you. Even if you don't, if you haven't done that, share with us. Just put no. It's okay. I mean, let's be, we are all men and women of integrity. But this is important. It's very important. I mean, I wrote an article on it, sometime in my series, Leadership Insights. If you want to be receiving it, you can put your email also in the chat. It's a weekly series. And that's what I said. What can leaders, what should followers hold you accountable for? It's not just you knocking people's head to deliver. It's not just you feeling disappointment when they don't. is a relationship, and both parties have responsibilities. What are yours? Are they made of yours? Can you therefore blame your people when they react in a manner, not knowing what they are to hold you accountable for? Aren't you also exposing yourself? Because whether or not you like it, they will hold you accountable for something. But guess what? Are you setting yourself up to be held accountable for what is not within your purview to deliver? Can you see the risk? So your people are expecting you to be able to fulfill certain, expectations, and you don't consider them to be part of your job as a leader. So there is a gap. There's an expectations gap. And every time there is a gap, it undermines your credibility, not that of the follower. The follower has little at stake compared to the leader. Sorry, Mr. Olatunji, I still see your hand raised. Is it from before, or you have something to say? I was thinking that it was from before, so I'm sorry if I haven't recognized that. Please let me know. Yeah, Sadiq, I would please just put your link, just put your email in the chat, and just put office politics against it so that I can send you details, of that. Busia, you can't, you're not clear on what I'm asking. I don't know when you joined us, but if you would explain, I don't know which aspect of what I have said you are not clear about, please just explain a bit more, and I'll be able to respond to that. Okay, so that's that's on the issue of accountability. Then there is the issue of passion. The way some of us, also leaders, get into trouble when their people are unimpressed because they can't see any passion or zeal, all right, to lead in the leader. They can't. They are looking for, there is nothing that, let me come back to this, Victor. Victor mentioned earlier on, talking about the team getting to a point where the performance plateaus. And he made the reference to, that's why I like the word you used, Victor. He made reference to energy. How do you get energy in so that it can, ginger everybody up? You can, re-energize everybody, and we can all begin, to get back the rhythm that used to be there. This is one way, sir. This is one way, because the first thing, that's why I like the issue of, the subject of leadership. You must always, in trying to resolve issues, you must always start with yourself. The leader must always start with self-introspection, because you may well be the issue. I'm not suggesting, Victor, that you are. I'm just drawing attention to some of the issues. It may be that the leader also has lost momentum. It may be that the excitement that used to be the driving force that the followership used to see in the leader is no longer there. That spark is no longer there. So the leader needs to re-examine himself. It's like your team may well be a good mirror. It's part of your mirror, all right? There's a program that we have, again, if you're interested, let me know, the leader in the mirror. And I in that program laid out why a leader needs a mirror and what a good mirror looks like. Okay, so one of the ways to get a sense of what's going on is that the team may be mirroring back to you what is in you. You may have lost the passion that they were used to. The team cannot be more passionate, sir and ma, than the leader. It will not happen. Your team cannot be hotter than yourself. They can't be more excited than you. You determine the pulse, the temperature of your team. So among other reasons that I would love to probe in the situation that you described earlier, Victor, that's one of it. Is the passion still there for whoever is leading that team? Can they see it? It may be there, but again, is it obvious? Or that's where it needs to start. Another, of course, why we're at it, is that the leader of that team, if he or she is sure that he's still on top in terms of his excitement, in terms of his drive and energy, he needs to find out whether there is any member of the team that is like a leaven or a yeast, because somebody in the team may be killing the morale of the team. Okay, that's the other thing. You need to, that's why leaders also need to understand the composition of their team. They need to know individuals and they need to keep track of what's going on. And one of that also is so that you don't end up with the true leader being in the team as opposed to the one heading the team. That's the point that was made earlier. How do you seize leadership responsibility without having a position? There are some people like that. You think you are the one running the team, but they are the one running the team. Why? Because their colleagues listen more to them than they listen to you. And that's not a position that I hope any of us is in right now, because that, can be, an issue. Okay, in relation to accountability, having people hold you as a leader accountable. Yes, what I'm saying is that, what have you communicated, Busiayo? What have you communicated to your team? What can they hold you responsible for? It's easy to know for you. Your followers know what you expect them to deliver. They know the behavior you're expecting. They know the result you're expecting. I'm saying, what behavior have you conveyed to them that they should expect from you? That's important, because when you do, you are making yourself accountable. It has a huge advantage because it puts you on your toes and it ensures that you are conscious about the way you interact with your team, so that you don't create a credibility crisis for yourself. Because whether you like it or not, even if you don't communicate, they are holding you accountable for some things, and you may not know. They may not tell you, but they are marking a, so to speak, a virtual, scorecard, and you may not be doing well on it because of the gap between what you believe to be your commitment to them and what they expect to hear. Yeah. So, all right. Yes, Busiayo, you want to say something? I see your hand up. Please go ahead and.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Thank
sir.
you very much, sir.
Yes.
My question. So, what I'm trying to understand is that, yes, I'm accountable to my bosses. Okay. I have my own targets and expectations given to me.
Yes.
Likewise, I've cascaded my expectations to my people.
Yes.
And they know what they are supposed to deliver.
Yes.
But it appears you're also saying that I should, or we should, have a way to make us accountable to them. So is it like I'm going to go to them and say, this year, I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to do that for you. So what do you want, or how am I going to be measured? Am I going to ask them for my own scorecard at the end of the year, or what?
Okay, I'm not asking for an appraiser. What I'm saying, sir, is this. Okay, so let's even take just one aspect of it. And this is just one aspect. What I'm saying is that you have cascaded your targets, okay, to them. So the targets, if we stay with quantitative targets, these are the things I want you to deliver. But you understand that there are things they need as well in order to deliver those targets. True or false, sir? Which can only come from you.
Things like what, for example? So let's say I say whatever the target is, right?
Yeah.
You have to do sales of 1 million naira.
Yeah.
So is it that, okay, for you to be able to make those calls, I need to give you data for you to be able to browse on the internet?
Whatever they consider, what you should ask them as well is what support will they need from you or from the institution to be able to assist them deliver that. Because you and I know, you give me a target. I worked in the bank for many years, so maybe I can speak a bit using that example. So you hand me a target, all right? You know I don't have an official car, and we're supposed to have a marketing car, all right? Even if I were to have an official car, it's not normal that I would use my official car and all that for that purpose. But you know that, maybe in my branch, there are 10 of us, but we have only one official car. One pool car, all right? And so in handing us a 5 billion target as deposit, you should be interested in what we need in order to achieve the 5 billion target. Because why you will hold me responsible for delivering the 5 billion, they should hold you responsible for providing more cars, for providing speedy, processing of their transactions and stuff like that. That's what I'm talking about. But that's just a part of it. There is the part of it, that deals with how do you conduct, your business as a team. We have said that it's not just the quantitative targets that are important. There are other, aspects of how you operate that are important as well. So maybe in terms of behavioral, attributes, okay, they may be important, okay. Maybe in terms for some of us, even when those numbers are delivered, the people still don't get recognized. Some don't get promoted. It looks as if, it was just a normal thing. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. But there's I'm more concerned about what the leader communicates as this is my essence. I call it the I am. This is who I am. Do you understand? If you tell me, for example, that you are a leader who respects policies, you place compliance with policy as a priority, all right, whatever it is that your people want to achieve, one of the things you will not tolerate is violation of policy. That, when you convey that to your team, they hold you accountable, all right, to behave consistent with that. So you can't afford to violate policy, having held out yourself as such. 2, you can't be seen supporting any member of the team that cut corners in order to achieve their target, because that will be a violation of who you said you are. I hope you get the point that I'm making now. So that's what I'm saying. Who are you? Who are you presenting yourself to be to those who are following you? because they will hold you accountable to live by the picture that you convey to them. So it's so you can see that there are many parts of it. I've used the illustration of just the simple targets, and you see, that's somebody said earlier on, I think it was Victor also that said, he said, okay, so you give me responsibility, but you don't empower me. That's like giving you a target and not giving you the tools with which to deliver on the target. I can't be the one to be held responsible for the tools. You have to be the one to be held responsible for the tools. And please don't tell me that it's the institution that will be held responsible. No, you as the leader, you are the one I know who is representing the institution. So if you are bold enough to tell me that I should deliver 5 billion in deposits, please be bold enough to tell your employer to give me the resources to deliver, or be bold enough to take responsibility and assure me that what I need, the empowerment I need to fulfill my side of the bargain, will be provided. Many times, what I'm saying, and many of us may find ourselves, I'll be surprised if there are more people than that do not. They find it more convenient. It probably looks like the normal thing to say, look, this is the target I've been given, I've cascaded it downwards, so that's what we are going to work towards. And that's one-way traffic. That's one-way traffic. That's the point I'm making. All right, so allow me to move forward on that. Victor talks about passion without purpose, or purpose without passion. It can be one or the other, and it's not intended to be one. Both of them are crucial. Purpose, where are you going with this team? Where is it that you are going with this team? Passion, demonstrate it in your attitude. Demonstrate it that you mean business. Where you are taking us, can we see it in you? So it isn't one or the other, it's both. A smart leader knows that the energy is required. The passion is at the root of the energy. When you see somebody who is passionate, you see that they are overtaken by energy. You see they're overtaken by excitement. You see the joy. It doesn't matter what is happening around them. As far as that issue, the focus of their passion is concerned, it would take a lot to kill their excitement anytime that thing is mentioned. So, passion fuels momentum for the team. That's why you see when the performance has plateaued, momentum has ceased. The energy is the one that creates the momentum. However it is done, it is the leader, when they bring passion to bear, that generates that excitement and gets everybody to start running again. Okay? So, all right, so thank you. All right. All right, so if I presume that we're all ready, for some details of what the SMART thing is about, let's quickly move on. So the second segment I call the SMARTer imperative. What must you do? What we have discussed so far should help us to review our approach and to begin to identify aspects of how we lead that needs a change, the kinds of transformation in our approach to leadership, all right, or our style that is focused on producing results that truly matter. I want to share 12 factors, I think, with us very quickly. One, the right priorities. If you want to lead smart, meaning that you want to do, you lead in a predetermined way. There is an approach that you bring, and you are clear about the approach, the components of which we're going to, talk about. One of the things you must address are your priorities. When leaders do not pursue the right priorities, they are burdened. They end up being burdened because what? They are doing things not expected of them, or they are doing things in a way that is contrary to how best to do them. Let me ask the class, what do you consider to be, what are your priorities as a leader? In the way that you do leadership, what are the priorities that you pursue? Please share with me. Or what's your top priority? Or maybe the top 2 priorities. What are they? Okay. Now, but once you get your priorities wrong, you are inviting trouble. Once your priorities are not proper, what you see may not be palatable. The weight that leaders shoulder is not so much their people. It's not the expectations of their people. It's not the pressure to deliver results. Those are all the things that leaders look at, that many leaders look at. But they are the symptom rather than the root. The weights are the priorities. The weights are the priorities. And what are these priorities? I'm going to leave with us 4 priorities. And I wish that you would express yours. But there are 4 things that every leader, and if you want to be a smart leader, they have to be your motivation. They have to be the way you run. Number 1 is fairness. Is fairness. Number 2 is forbearance. Is forbearance. Number 3 is faith or faithfulness. And by faith there, I'm not talking about the Christian faith or any other faith. And I will soon tell you what I'm talking about. And number 4 is compliance. Is compliance. So what are the priorities? Number 1, fairness. Number 2, forbearance. Number 3, faithfulness. And number 4 is compliance. That's your commitment to your team. When you run on the basis of those 4, many of the challenges you have will not be there. So let's take number 1, fairness. And all these things you do them, they characterize your conduct. And those who are at the receiving end are your followers. You have to be fair to everyone. You have to be fair. You recall the example that I used when we're talking about the multicultural setting. Are you fair? Are you seen to be fair? So it's not only you thinking you are fair, it's you ensuring that your fairness is not subject to debate. That is obvious, and everybody shares it. And please tell me, the day you achieve that, how will that affect your team? Number two, how forbearing are you? Some of us have become leaders who are intolerant of mistakes on the part of those who follow us. And we forget that if those people were perfect, we won't be the ones to lead them. Any small thing, the way we react. Some leaders, one slight mistake, however heavy, they will come down so hard as though they are not forgiving at all. Some leaders are so petty that things that they ought to overlook, they are always picking issues. Yet some of these issues are not even important for the mandate at hand. And they forget that they also, in their interaction with the following, that they also get on the wrong side. And so when they hurt followership, they expect to be forgiven, or they just overlook it. But when it's the other way around, they come down hard. They are eating their cake and having it simultaneously. What does that do to your relationship with those who are coming behind you? I'm speaking quickly on these issues because of our time. Third is faith or faithfulness. And there are two dimensions of that. How much do we believe, or do we express confidence in those that work with us? The fact that somebody makes a mistake, the fact that somebody goofed yesterday, doesn't mean that we shouldn't have confidence. Doesn't mean to have confidence or to have faith is to believe, even when they are weak, that they can improve. And many of us, we don't do that. We are quick to separate the so-called wheat from the chaff. So much so we don't give those who are not doing well today, or those who are making mistakes today, we don't show that we believe that they can change. Some would even tell you, yourself, I know, only God will help you, because I don't see how you can change. You can't say that. You can't operate like that. You can't operate like that. Because when you express confidence in people and they see it, they don't want to disappoint you. It can spur them, to picking themselves up, to improving on their game. When we reassure them that, look, I know what you need is more effort. Yeah, don't make this kind of mistakes again. This can cost us, if you did this, look at the kind of problem we could, but I know you just need to have, presence of mind. Is there something bothering you and all of that? That is the attitude that you bring to it, to your relationship with your team members. And number 4, compliance. Compliance means that you have respect. They know that you have respect for policy, and that you would not encourage any cutting of corners. You are straight, you are upright, and that's how you want to deal. These 4 are crucial. If you show mercy, in quotes, or forbearance, as it were, to people or to your subordinates, one of the things it elicits is love for you. Is they have a more positive disposition towards you. They are more prone to believe in you. All right. It's also a source of motivation. because they know, this man that did this for me, he could have taken this step. This is not to suggest that you must not discipline your staff. No. This is to tell us that these are the real priorities. These are the weighty matters of leadership. So instead of focusing on the people and thinking that they are a burden, focus on your approach. And let this be part of the core of your approach. I'm running over the course of next week a 5-day session where I'm just going to be talking about this. And it's going to be a lot more detailed than what I've spoken to. Some of you may have seen it, but it is titled How to Carry the Weight of Leadership Successfully. How to carry the weight of leadership successfully. These are the weights, but we're going to drill down in detail. And I'm going to show that in order for you to do this, there are weights. It's not, don't ever imagine that it's piece of cake to operate fairly or to easily forgive. I mean, many know what it takes, how much you struggle with forgiveness. So it gives you a sense that it's not piece of cake. But there are weights that are easier to carry than the ones that we're carrying. To believe in somebody makes a demand on you. Why? Because we ordinarily won't do that. Yet, that's what it takes to get the people to change and to line up, all right, with our agenda for the team. That's being smart. All right. So what are your own priorities? I asked the question. What do you focus on? And in what order? And there is the order. There is an order to those four. There is an order. Some factors are more important than the others. I'll send you something on that for those who may be interested in that. That's a paid program. Second, are you principle-driven? Do you live a principle-driven lifestyle? What principles do you subject yourself to? When leaders don't live by principles, they will be disoriented. What principles do you live by? This is part of what your followers need to know. There must be some core principles. Otherwise, if you don't know what principles guide you, then we can't predict you. We won't know how you are going to react in circumstances. We won't know what you expect, from us in different situations. All right? And so you are prone to arbitrary behavior. And you are even more prone to hypocritical behavior when you don't anchor your life or your approach to principle. You see, principles don't change. Principles remain the same. And it's one of the easiest ways. When you commit yourself and you anchor your work, your approach to principle, it helps because you can't change. So you are not afraid to deal with issues in different circumstances. Why? Because you operate by principle. You operate by principle. Okay. So what are your core principles? Again, I ask, what are the principles that represent the cornerstone of your approach to leadership? What are they? And then are your people aware of them? Are your people aware of them? And then, of course, we talk about the mindset. What's your mindset? What's your mindset? One of the ways that I think it was Victor that mentioned that the issue of, he talked about his approach being, service driven. And, so it is like, that's the mindset. All right. I have come to serve. When the mindset is contrary to that, as far as leadership is concerned, there will be a problem. The leader is put in place to serve, not to be served. The leader is put in place to pursue the interest of others, not his own interest. In terms of the scale of preference, the interest of others must take precedence over the leader's interest. The interesting aspect of that is that the best way to serve your interest is by serving the interest of others. So what mind is in you? Because there is a mind that has to be the foundation for doing leadership. And I agree with Victor, is the mind of service. I would even say is a heart of love. The thing with those priorities I talked about is that their practice promotes that kind of mindset. It promotes a mindset of love. How self-aware are you? Do you truly know yourself, dear leader? Because when you don't know yourself enough, it becomes a problem. The reason that is much of what you need to be a good leader is a seed that somewhere is already in you. What needs to happen is to nurture it. I was talking about holding yourself accountable. And I said, one of the ways you do that is by projecting who you are. One of the things a leader must work towards is that he conveys clearly who he or she truly is. Because when you do that, then the followers know what to expect from you. All right? And then that friction, that gap is blocked. And the moment that happens, that's a major milestone in the journey of the leader. When you get your people to understand who exactly you are. Because guess what? What is leadership about? It's about reproducing yourself in others. That's what it's about. So if you don't know yourself enough, how do you even know where you have accomplished your mission? How do you know? How do you know? Okay. How do you know? So, all right, I will come to your, I'm seeing your, all right. So there's the issue of self-awareness, and also, are you knowledge-driven? Are you knowledge-driven? You know, earlier we were asking, I said, you don't, when you have challenges and they tend to overwhelm you, it's because in your area of responsibility, being a leader is because you don't know enough. And leaders, therefore, must be knowledge-driven. Leaders must be knowledge-driven. You can't stop learning. You can't stop making efforts to learn, really, to get knowledge relevant for your assignment. It's not enough. People talk about the leader cannot know everything. Yes, but the leader must take responsibility for every situation. Otherwise, why is he leading? It is true, the leader can't know everything, but the leader is expected to continue to grow in knowledge, because the more he knows, the more able he would be to handle situations that the team is confronted with. So, a smart leader will be knowledge-driven. So what commitment do you make to knowledge acquisition? What's your attitude? What have you put in place? How well do you go after knowledge? Are you one who is easily satisfied? Or are you one who knows that he or she needs to continue to grow, that you never have enough of knowledge? Then there is inner strength. How strong are you? There will be rough patches. There will be challenges. And in the face of that, the leader needs to stand strong. The leader needs to stand strong. The leader has to be the one that everybody else can rest on. It's not that the leader is not scared, but the leader has the ability to endure. And so a commitment to building inner strength. And inner strength can be built in various ways. Knowledge itself is one way to do that. So how strong are you for that assignment? Is it that your strength is not enough? Maybe that's what is the problem. It could be. It could be the reason behind the frustrations. It could be that you have not taken, you don't have a focus on the need to build resilience, all right, against the challenges that are certainly bound to come. And so when they appear in our leadership role, we can't even stand up. And our team can rely on us to take them through some of those challenges. Then there is smart delegation. How do you delegate? That point was made, I think it was John that made that point, delegation. That in some cases you are given the responsibility, but the power is not given. The empowerment is not given. There's a smart way to delegate. And one of which is what has been pointed out. But that's not all there is. There is also the timing of delegation when you delegate. There is the aspect of ensuring that there is learning from the delegation experience. And some of these are the things that those who delegate often miss out on. You would find leaders will be quick to agree or to say that they delegate, but perhaps they do it in the normal way. One of the characteristics of doing delegation the normal way is to give the responsibility and not give the authority to get it done. But in other cases, is not to provide the requisite oversight so that you can ensure that the beneficiaries learn very important lessons from their experience, so that you use delegation as an instrument to teach the followers. So there is more to it. There is also the aspect of instruction, because in order for you to delegate, you must also be sure that one, you have trained properly, and two, that you have given clear instructions, unambiguous instructions to guide the use. One of the reasons that people don't give the authority is because they have not done their job well. They have not provided information on how to do the job, on how to use the authority that is delegated. So there is what you need to do. You can delegate accountability and responsibility, but delegation does not absolve you as the leader of full responsibility. I can give the duty and I can give the power, but when anything goes wrong, as a leader, I must never point accusing fingers at the one I delegated to. You must understand that when you delegate, you don't delegate taking responsibility when things go wrong. That's the hallmark of leaders. That's why the act of delegation has to be done, smartly, has to be done well, because you do it knowing that when anything goes wrong, you are going to take responsibility. I mean, forget what happens, what we tend to get away with in our environment, where a lot of values are not just right. But that's how it is. Leaders don't point accusing fingers, except, of course, where there is outright illegality. But you still take responsibility that, look, I'm the cause of it, even though you are not the one that will be prosecuted. But you must know that when certain things go wrong, go awry under you, you take responsibility for it. And that's one of the ways of doing leadership well. It's part of the sacrifice of leadership. Leaders don't sacrifice their followers. Why? Because they are responsible for how their followers behave. That's why the job of a leader is not piece of cake. As attractive as it is, the substance of it is a huge responsibility. It's a huge responsibility. Okay, so again, team proximity. How close are you to your team? Are you very close? I have had leaders who says, look, we just came to work, let each one do his own thing. I don't want to get involved. I don't want to be in a relationship. I mean, not a relationship, male, female, but we just came to work, blah, blah, blah. No. How can you want to influence the lives of people and you don't want to be close to them? You want to deal with them on arm's length basis. You want to deal with them, as officially or officiously as possible. No. And that's because we are often looking at results with a short-term view. Leadership is about persons. That's why I started out by saying that lives are committed into the hands of the leader. What you do or do not do can determine what becomes of somebody, for the rest of their lives. It's not about the profit is today, but no, the interaction affects the person. A leader turns a person into a personality after his own kind. That's how it is. And so you need, yes, there must be limits, but you must be close to your team members. That's why things fall through the cracks. Because as I will show later, there are certain things that you must know about the attributes, the character of your members, that if you don't, all the work you have done on them will go to nothing. Because when some of those things happen, even you as the leader will be embarrassed. You can have, for example, people who are doing great at work, who listen, who are dependable, who everything you hear about them is just great. But because you are not close enough, there may be people who are on drugs, for example. There may be people who are smoking marijuana or something, but you will never know. It takes a level of relationship to know, because guess what? The day that the marijuana dimension, I call it the little foxes, the day that it would appear, all the work that you have done on that fellow, can be rubbish completely. That's if the life itself is not destroyed. Is one of the ways, is one of the reasons why this is very important. All right, we need to begin to round up now. So how close are you? How close are you to your team members? Don't keep them at arm's length. Every relationship would have its limits, but you need to be there needs to be some level of closeness, so that you preserve, among others, the seed that you're sowing by your interactions with them. All the benefits that you're bringing into their lives out of their interaction with you, you can preserve them. That's part of what I talk about with little foxes, that the smart leader has to be interested in those aspects of, the behavior of his people that are not very obvious. All right, you must, so that you can protect your investment in their lives and you don't allow, your investment to go to waste. And also for their own sake, all right, you help them to make maximum, to gain maximally from the transformation that they experience under your leadership. Also, don't be you need to be anti-tradition, meaning that, be open to ideas. Create an environment where people can share ideas. Don't be caught up in how you did things, in your days, because things are changing. Of course, you don't have to sacrifice any of those priorities. There is none of the priorities we mentioned, if you remember them, that anything happening today or that will happen tomorrow can change. Nothing will change the need to be fair. Nothing will change the need to be to forbear. Nothing will change the need, to believe in those that work for you. Nothing will change the need to be compliant with policy. Those things will never change. So being open, all right, to ideas will not sacrifice the priorities that you are intended to pursue as a leader. It won't. It won't. Okay. And then, are you counsel seeking? Or you just do your own thing? It would be a shame. A smart leader must have a source of counsel. Where can you immediately get counsel? Where can you get counsel when the situation is tricky? All right. There are situations that will present themselves. You can't handle them in spite of all that you know, in spite of all your experience. But you have people who have gone ahead of you, that you are in constant touch with, that you can fall back on for counsel. So do you have it? Do you have that kind of system? Because if you don't, you are not leading smartly. Everybody must have that kind of buffer. It's like a backup. When things get, or when I need to double check on certain aspects of how I'm doing this job, I need to have people I can call. I can go and visit. I can listen to. They can give me, other perspectives. And those perspectives will be relevant, powerful, because they have been there before. They have probably seen, even worse scenarios or greater challenges. And I can certainly learn from them. And finally, everything that we have talked about will be useless if you're not disciplined. If your approach is not disciplined. You can't be smart without discipline. Nothing is sustainable without discipline. So you need a disciplined approach. And a disciplined approach is what will make you continue to obey and walk by, all these things, preventing you from straying. So you don't do it when you feel like. You do it because you know that this is what you have, how you have opted, to approach leadership, and the benefits, and there are structures you have put in place to prevent you from straying as well. Okay, so your smart leader approach, a lot of what I've said now will come in to the approach. The elements of it, let me just say, just to give you a sense of the concept of the smart leader, that's what it is. It is leading based on a select mix of core principles and disciplined actions, core principles and disciplined actions. I'm talking about the totality of, those 12 components that I've mentioned, because they will produce profound results. Why? Because they empower, they secure the commitment of your people. They empower them, to get their job done. They build them up, and it's the people that get the results. Okay, so our work as leaders is building the people up so that they can deliver the results. It's not trying to force them to deliver results without providing them the capacity to do so. And to do that this time with ease and peace of mind. Because when you have that kind of disciplined approach, what does it say? It means that, things are pretty much certain. Your approach is certain. You are not thinking about, what is the makeup of your leadership approach? What are the priorities that drive you? How you run, your leadership responsibility, because now there is something that is well defined. All right, that you can relate with the individual components. And anybody wakes you up, you say, this is how I do leadership. That deliberate, approach is the smartness of it. And it prevents all the headaches that we have. It will speak to those issues that we identified, at the onset. So you need to develop capacity. You have to continue developing capacity, relevant for your role. And when your role changes, you need to ensure that you are developing capacity relevant to your role. Okay, relevant. Your knowledge is relevant knowledge. It's not just to be reading or to be doing one thing. Okay. So develop capacity. I'm just going to run through this. You would have access to this. Then you need to be needs focused. You focus on needs, not on wants. Unfortunately, some leaders focus on wants. It's burdensome. The needs, some of those priorities we have talked about, speak to the needs of people. The mindset we talked about, service, is need also driven at its root. Okay, different elements of what we have identified, speak to needs directly or indirectly. Leaders should not be bothered about wants of people. Rather, they should be bothered about the needs. Avoid abuse. You will be challenged at 3 levels: to abuse your position, to abuse your power, to abuse the protection that you have as a leader. And you can relate with this in the corporate setting, that especially when you are put in a position of leadership, there is some form of protection that you enjoy that is institutional, but you can abuse it if care is not taken. I wish I could go into details here. I did a program recently, how to become a major player at work, and I spoke more directly on this in a lot of detail. Know yourself. We have also spoken about this. Recall we mentioned it earlier. Is the most important milestone when your followers get to know you, because when they get to know you, it's like giving you the license, all right, to to really shape them, all right. But if they don't, if they still continue to, that arrangement is going to be difficult, and it's going to present you with challenges. You become like a mystery, and you shouldn't be a mystery to those you are leading. You should be clear. They should be able to see that picture, knowing that that's what will become of them. Because like we said, you replicate yourself, in your followers. That is what leadership is about. And so you see, among others, why it's important that that should be the case. All right, you have the mind reset. We talked about your mindset earlier on, and that you need to work on that. You need to have principles, and particularly a cornerstone principle. The lack of principle is what makes leaders hypocrites. And one principle is the principle of input and output. Is what you put in is what you're going to get. Every other thing builds on that. I wish I could spend time on that, but if that's all you take, and you measure your actions by, to ensure that you know the consequences, that there will be consequences to everything that you do, but you can determine the consequences, because it is what you do that will lead to the consequence, to a particular consequence. It's action that will lead to a particular consequence. So if you are conscious about that, of that, it helps a great deal. It helps a great deal. It helps you, to do away with arbitrariness. It signals to your people, this is what you believe, and of course, that's just a foundational principle. As basic as it is, you'll be surprised, that many leaders don't have respect for it, and they do not practice it. And is it any wonder that there are issues? Express passion. We have spoken a lot about, passion, and the smart leader must be passionate, pursue the right priorities. I've spoken about the priorities. You must know that leadership is about sacrifice. The weight of leadership requires a disposition to sacrifice, a willingness to embrace, sacrifice, to live for others and not for yourself. That's what a leader is called to, and is one of the most important ways by which you secure goodwill, credibility, trust with followership. One of the illustrations I use, permit me to do that again, is that if you take a seed, look, no matter how viable a seed is, if it does not allow you to put it in the ground, it has no hope of becoming anything. It will die with potential, or it will be there, it won't even die with potential. That's leadership. You have to embrace the sacrifice. Like I said, those priorities, you can't do them. They are weights. It requires sacrifice. You will feel like not forbearing with people. You will feel like telling some people off because you have tried so much and they are just not pulling their weight. But you still need to have faith in them, and you need to demonstrate it. You need to believe that each one, there is hope for each one, for as long as they are working with you, and keep working at it. It's something that we can talk about. It's not easy to practice, it's a weight, but if you get it right, you will see how it changes, what you are able to get the same people to do for you within your team. And also you need to delegate smartly. I think I've spoken about what that entails. You need to secure your legacy. What do I mean? When, talking about those little foxes, talking about taking greater interest in your people beyond the superficial, all right? So that it is to secure your legacy. It is to secure, to protect what you have invested in them. It is to ensure that if there are still any aspects of, their lives that need to be addressed, you can do it. Because if you don't, someday soon, we will wonder whether they ever worked with you. We will wonder whether they ever benefited anything from you. And you don't want that to happen. Because if it does, all it means is that one has failed in his or her ability to, in that leadership responsibility. And then you need to mind your credibility. Smart leaders don't expose themselves to hypocrisy, otherwise you are done. A hypocrite leader is done. People will be going through the motions, but nothing is going to happen. Why? Because they just can't believe you. Because when you say you are going right, you are going left, and that's not how followers want to deal with their people. All right, that's the idea behind the SMART leadership. You can see that it's a clear framework with clear components that are practical, that you need to embrace and use, and the justification for them are pretty clear. The expected impact on your people, the people you have responsibility for, is also pretty clear. It's not just grappling with so many things. It helps to keep you on course in the way that you do leadership. Here I was just saying that there will be moments of truth for every leader, and encouraging what the leader must do at those moments of truth. Leading smarter, notwithstanding, there will be moments of truth. But when you practice, when you deal on the basis of what we have discussed, you would find that you are better able to handle those moments of truth appropriately. So the final thing is to say that executing a smarter approach to your leadership is the next thing. Is up to you now to take a look at how you have been dealing, and to evolve. Perhaps this will help you to evolve, to redefine your approach to leadership, to evolve a plan, to execute and to keep track as your way of changing the situation that you currently are faced with, or some of the challenges that you are experiencing. So your current position, you can put it side by side with the framework and come up with the way to go, or a desired solution, and then you begin to think of how to implement that. Finally, if you need help, you can join our Smart Leadership Program. It's a 12-week program focused on developing the mindset and the capacity to lead smarter, and so we will walk through in greater detail all of the things that we have said. You can see the connections a lot more. And this is for leaders who want to transform themselves and their leadership approach or style in order to produce more profound results in and through your people, We haven't used those words carelessly. It's very important. And what would you get? You will get help to discover the real problems holding you back and design a compact, strategic, and potent playbook for you to lead smartly, So you come through with a well-defined approach, to leadership. And that program has 4 components. The first is to diagnose your leadership dilemma. We've talked about that. To revamp your approach using the imperatives that we have discussed, and also the components of the approach, smart approach that we laid out. And then we'll talk about the execution, how to implement, what we're able to distill that is specially for you. And then a system from time to time of how to appraise your results, how you are making progress, and to fine tune, the approach, your new approach, as progress is being made. So you can take action to confirm your suitability for the program, or you can decide to get on the program directly. If you want, just please indicate in the chat, just put your name and tell us what you want, and we will be in touch with you to discuss. Confirming suitability is to discuss what your current challenges are, what you'd like to see, and then we'll have a one-on-one, mini coaching call, and we'll be able to tell you, how to go further. And if you want to get on the program, please indicate as well, and we'll reach out to you as well with the details of the program. So if you decide to book a call, again, you can indicate in the chat. At the call, we would undertake a review. We have some initial report that summarizes where you are and give you pointers to what you need to do to improve on your approach and style as a leader. For the program, in terms of time commitment, some may be wondering 12 weeks isn't that long, but on weekly basis, there will be just one and a half session. It's a life learning session that I will be leading. That's just 1 hour, 30 minutes every week that will take a component of that. Every week also, because the cohort, the group will be meeting to discuss the issues from my own weekly session and preparatory, for use for developing their individual new smart leadership approaches. And then, on a weekly basis, each one on the program would have a 30-minute session with me to review the progress so far, to review the plans that they are coming up with, to have inputs, and guidance. And also, the program would involve self-guided practice and homework, so that empowers you to turn these insights into action, into practical action. The essence is that you come through from the program with a more effective, less burdensome approach, to leadership, with greater confidence to be able to take on, even higher leadership responsibilities than you can do currently. So you can go ahead and book a call. If you just indicate in the chat, put a call by the side, I would get in touch, put your email, like I said. And if it's, if you want to express direct interest in the program, again, just put express interest or interested and put your email, and we'll come back to you with details of the program, when it is starting, the cost, and all of that. So I welcome you all. Looking forward to working with you to rebuild and to re-energize your ability to lead smarter, as it were. There you are. I read, Jerry, I read your comments. Thanks for your comments. You can situate a lot of what you have said within the context of, what I have outlined. You see the sacrifice there. You see the value for people, respect. If we talk about the details of those priorities, you can't but do that and not, be acting towards people with respect. And to be authentic, it starts with knowing who you are. Some people claim to be authentic, but it's a lie, because you can't be authentic when you don't know who you are. You are likely to miss the point. And the way you miss the point is that, you are projecting something else that you don't even know. Many times people know us more than we know ourselves. We like to kid ourselves. But if you don't undertake a process, and there is a process for getting to know yourself. For example, I could ask the class, can you name 1 or 2 character attributes of yours that defines 80% of who you are. You know, the Pareto principles applies to your personality. Tell me 1, 2 things maximum that defines who you truly are. And those 2 things must cover 80% of you, of who you are. But you can only know it if you go through a process. It's one of the things that we would, of course, deal with, you know, in the class, because it's so fundamental. You can't be an effective leader without knowing self. You can't. And not knowing self superficially. It's knowing self at a deep level, very deep level. And let me assure you as well, that self is also not static, because as you are practicing, as you are doing the things we're talking about, yourself is also evolving and being transformed. Leadership isn't just about transforming the people. You also, you know, are transformed in the process. So it's a dynamic process. It's a dynamic process. But I mean, for those who are able to be a part of the program, I would deal with the issue, is the subject of knowing, nurturing, and leveraging you. Knowing, nurturing, and leveraging you. When you are on top of your game in that regard, a lot of the worries about leadership will be addressed, including the things about you that you need to address. The things about you that you need to address, which you don't know. And that's why, you know, things are falling through the cracks and, you know, many get frustrated. But these are some of the things that I believe you would have the opportunity of benefiting when if you are able to join us on the program. It's not going to be a large class, but you know, would like to make it as impactful as possible, you know, and that's how seriously, you know, we take it. And I hope that, you know, you can join. All right. Okay, so allow me, I think I've said enough, and you have been gracious enough to give me 30 minutes of grace, even though I think that many of us didn't come on time, so we didn't start on the dot of 6, but thank you for the grace that you have given me as well, like we always do, if you do. And thank you for the contributions that you have made. Really, really appreciated. I want to give you an opportunity to speak or to ask any questions or to seek any clarification. Again, please visit, once you register for some of these programs on the platform, like I said before, you become like a member of the community. So you can log on to that platform at any time just to see what's going on. At times, you know, the videos are uploaded. For example, this video is going to be uploaded in less than an hour, you know, after the session is done. And I would also upload the slide presentation. I mean, even before sending out an email in that regard. So please feel free to visit and check out what else we may have, and there will be other programs that we may have coming up, you know, from time to time. Like I said, don't forget next week, lunchtime, I think I've put it between 1 and 2:30 every day. I'll be speaking to the issue of how to carry the weight of leadership successfully. All right, so if you want to speak, you have the opportunity. You can unmute your mic and speak to the house. It can be a contribution or a question, or if I have not spent enough time on certain aspects, please, you know, you may want to draw our attention to that. So thank you very much for attending. All right, Emeka, please go ahead, sir.
Okay. Good evening, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, good evening, sir. You're welcome, sir. I can hear you.
Yes. Okay, thank you so very much for masterfully delivering this class. I started from the very beginning In fact, I had to drive all the way from the office while I was listening on my phone, and just to make sure that I participated in this class.
Thank you.
You have significantly, exposed me to a lot of principles and practices when it comes to leadership, because leadership is learning is a continuum. It's a lifelong process. As a matter of fact, I have I offered myself up for a leadership position in my church. Now let me explain how I mean. I am a Catholic, and the way the church is structured, we have state associations, which are platforms through which the church can reach the laity or the parishioners, apart from the spiritual society. Now, this principles I've learned from here will significantly equip me, because there's going to be a manifesto session. We're going to tell the people what we intend to bring, to the table.
Okay.
And I want to let you know that what I've learned so far tonight is going to help me craft, my manifesto. I'm not looking at it from the political component of it. I'm looking at it intrinsically from what people will benefit in terms of networking, in terms of capacity building, in terms of building up their spiritual life.
Yeah.
These are three focal areas I intend to work on. Then what am I bringing to the table, like you just taught us tonight? I'm bringing purposeful leadership. I'm bringing accountability. I'm bringing lifelong learning. I'm bringing attention to detail.
Correct.
I can't overemphasize on what I will bring in, and importantly for me, passion. I'm bringing passion.
Yeah.
Because it's a one-term, 4 years, office, and when you're done, you vacate, never to run for that office again.
Yeah.
So thank you so very much, sir, for what you've done. I'm going to indicate my interest subsequently for other classes, and I want to let you know that you're doing so well. And I'm going to equally inform my friends. When the video is shared, I'm going to send it to them to listen to. And I hope we can make Nigeria, because Nigeria, as we are at our wit's end on the leadership recruitment process, which has put us in the situation where we find ourselves. So these things you're doing, don't think it's not making impact. It's making impact in the lives of many of us who have attended the class, if I speak their mind. So thank you very much, sir, for this.
Thank you very much for your very kind words. I mean, it's encouraging, and I like the fact that what you said is your focus is on the people, in seeking that leadership role, and not not on yourself. And what you gain also isn't so much about the theory of it, but is a commitment to put these things into practice. What I want to assure you and assure the class is that these are principles that work. These exposition work. We don't teach what doesn't work, and everything we teach is squarely, supported by our faith. So nothing can be more reassuring. Nothing can be more reassuring. Thank you, and I, wish you all the best. I look forward to the good news of you winning in that, winning that position, and more importantly, showing the kind of example, of leadership that Nigeria really requires. All right. Yes, Victor, is it Victor who has raised his hand? Please.
Yes, I think it's me. I think I did.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Thank you so very much for this wonderful session. It's professionally delivered.
Thank you, sir.
When I mean it, and I speak from my mind. And not only the fact that is an eye opener to some key issues, is also a refresher for some of us that may have assumed certain things, they have taken certain things for granted. When you are a leader and you've been leading people for quite a while, the tendency to take certain things for granted or tend to approach your leadership style or the way you do things from a business as usual perspective, without having to be dynamic, without having to refresh, without having to re-energize, as the case might be. So this for me is a reminder that if you stay in one place and assume that things will continue to work out the way you used to, you are in for a long term. So thank you for that. But there's also something that when you lead a team, when you spoke about the little foxes, you say be very mindful of the little foxes.
Yes.
And they come in very quiet manner. They creep in slightly, and before you know what is happening, they've created significant level of noise that becomes a distraction to the entire team. It could start with small gossip. Do you know what this guy is doing? Before you know what is happening, he has messed up the entire team. So be mindful of those little foxes and requiring the spirit of discernment so that you'll be able to cut them at the nick of time is also very important for me. And finally, for me, it clearly today has demonstrated the fact that leadership is not accidental.
Yes.
It's something you must deliberately do. Correct. It's not something you will leave to chance. And that for me, that's a key takeaway today, that if I have to improve on my leadership style, in my leadership approach, in my decision to deliver results, it must be consistent, persistent, and deliberate. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm encouraged by your comments, and I think that you are right. Leadership is deliberate, and it needs to be treated as such. That's why, if you are being as deliberate as leadership, as your leadership role requires, you shouldn't have difficulty explaining to anybody what your approach to leadership is. But if you can't, then you have not been deliberate. You are using experience, you are using work experience. And leadership is not just like that. The other thing that you would find is that although it's an art, there's also a science to it, because, there are principles that back all of these things up. And that's where what we have shared derives its strength. That's what should be the assurance for anybody who is listening and really wants to make a change, because principles, the good thing about principles is that they always deliver. Once you do your part, they will deliver. That's the thing. Principles don't change. Principles have no respect for you or for me. The principles have respect only for those who obey them. And obedience is in doing the part that the principle defines for you. Okay, so that's why it's an input-output thing. You put the input, the output is sure to come, except, of course, you are not practicing a principle. So these are some of the areas where, that makes us comfortable to advance this kind of views, and to encourage people to take a second look at themselves, at the way they lead, and they'll be shocked at what they will find. It reminds me, and I'd like to invite everyone as well. I think I'm holding a session on Saturday or Sunday, and I want to deal with the issue of hypocrisy of leadership. Haunted by Hypocrisy, I think, is the title of that session. Haunted by Hypocrisy is one of the major issues with leadership. The problem also is that many people, many leaders they would never accept that their behavior is hypocritical. And so it's a problem. And once you are caught up with that, it's like a chains being put around, your leadership, so much so that it can only go so far. Ultimately, the person is bound to subject themselves to ridicule. And it's because hypocrisy is seen only from one perspective, whereas there are many manifestations, of what is hypocritical behavior. You'll be amazed, at what hypocritical behavior is. I think a lot of people, will go back and really start taking a new look at themselves once, if, after that session. So if you're able to join us, it would be, another time of building capacity to lead. All right, do we have any other comment, or we are done? Any other comment? Mr. Julius, you're welcome. Any comment? Mr. John Okwade, you're welcome. Good to see you again. Any comment from your good self? Jerry, any comment? Go ahead, sir.
Okay, good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Quite a delight to be here again tonight.
Thank you.
I think I've become your ardent follower. You really touch on things that I'm quite passionate about leadership and personal development. So I think ever since I stumbled upon EMET, I have become an addict.
Thank you very much, sir.
So thank you so much, sir, for all you do. Thank you for the impactful sessions you give us. Like the last speaker said, it actually goes very far beyond what you may be thinking, to helping us to perfect whatever skill we need to perfect in leadership, not just for leading people, but even for life.
Yes.
Like I made mention in my chat,
Yes.
just to share an experience, maybe it may help us as we
please go ahead.
Continue to deliberate. We touched on the issue of valuing people and being sacrificial as leaders, as one of the cornerstones for building influence and for getting people to be loyal to us, even in very turbulent times.
Yes.
I actually work in a bank, and there was a time I was working in a branch located in the Northeast. That was at the height of the insurgency. And, so there was a lot of tension, a lot of fear among my teammates. Then I was the head of operations. And there was even a time that there was an attack in the town, by the insurgents. It was quite traumatic.
Yes.
So, but as God would have it, somehow we were able to organize ourselves to leave town, for safety when the thing got so bad. But what we noticed was quite a number of people had this very on your own mentality. Everybody just scampering, trying to live for themselves and all that. But somehow, even in the midst of the fear and the difficult situation, I still said, no, let me do my best to secure the lives of my staff members first.
Yeah.
And I can get them out of town, even before I think about myself. Now, for me, it's I don't know whether to say it came naturally, or I just felt that was the proper thing to do, at the time, and I didn't give much thought to it.
Yeah.
But apparently, that seemed to have deposited seeds in people, that they felt this person actually values us, and even decided to put his own interests backwards and put our own interests first. And I discovered by the time we returned, when things were calm, I mean, the dynamics of the team, it changed its ante completely. Already there was that camaraderie, but it took another level.
Yeah.
And so much so that even when things were very tough, even with the bank and all that, and we didn't seem to be getting the kind of compassion or some kind of thoughtfulness at the central level, one of them met me and said, "Sir, the reason why we do this thing is not even because of the bank, it's because of you."
Yeah.
And at that point, you can be very sure that loyalty and camaraderie helps you to achieve whatever goals you want, not even because people have to, but because they want to.
Yeah.
And so, yes, the sacrifice, sometimes people make it look like it's a weak thing, but in the long run, it pays off. It seals a kind of loyalty that no amount of anything else can buy. So I just want to encourage everybody here not to look at sacrifice or valuing people as a weak thing. Like you rightly said earlier on, sir, some of us in this our industry, results seem to be the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, there are other things that matters much more.
Yeah.
Which beyond the industry becomes part of your social capital in life. So I just felt one should share that these principles do work. It may take time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it may look as if it's not even working, but it does work.
Yes.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for those words and for sharing, that example. Very commendable, sir. Very, very commendable. And that's it. That's how, that's how once you see, leadership is about is about earning the right. First of all, the leader is called to transform the lives of those that follow him or her. Secondly, the leader may be given that, privilege to lead, but he has to earn the right to lead. And the way you earn the right to lead is by communicating that you can be trusted, that you are credible, that there is something in it for those who are going to follow you. And the act of sacrifice, that you have made in your case, serve that purpose. I mean, what else do you want to say about a man who does that in your circumstance? People will go to any length. They will find resources from anywhere. They will do anything, and many times without you even asking, them. All right. Why? Because they have bought into you, because they know they can trust you, because they know that, you are working, you have their interest at heart, and that this whole thing is not about you, but more about them. And like I said, the wisdom behind it is that you actually, the best way to pursue your own interest is to pursue their interest. Because when they are okay, you are okay. That's the truth. Why? Because that's your scorecard. They are your scorecard. They are your scorecard. And no leader can get anything done by himself. If any leader is getting any result by himself, he or she is certainly underperforming. Because the reason you lead is because the people you lead, when their efforts, are added to yours, it should produce result that far exceeds what you alone, can bring about. So these are the concept, but it requires the right kind of mindset. Otherwise, people continue to do things the way it's being done currently, and we have seen where that kind of leadership has taken us. The world is in a mess because of the failure of leadership. And there's a cry everywhere, in every sector, in every department, for quality leadership. For leadership, like I said, is after the heart of God. For leadership that is nurtured by the truth, not by mere fads or theories or principles that are not proven. So once again, thank you very much, sir. All right, I take it that that's all for our session, except of course if we still have anybody who is so eager to say something. Otherwise, permit me on behalf of EMET Leadership Academy to express our appreciation for joining us this night. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the night and indeed the rest of the week. God bless you. We look forward to seeing you again. We'll be following up with all those who have indicated interest. And to others, please put in a word for us, introduce us, let the word go out. Everybody needs leadership, and we'll be glad to welcome others to our sessions. Thank you again, and God bless you. And have a good night or good day, as the case may be, depending on where you are currently joining from.